Check, 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 check. Can you hear me? Yes. Okay. Welcome. Welcome to all of you. And with keeping with Swedish tradition, it's 2:15 and we will start on the dot. Though where I come from in India, nothing happens on time. We call it Indian stretchable time. Yeah? Like I was explaining to my panelists earlier, we invented slow food, slow travel, slow work. We pioneered it in the world. Yeah, and the world has absorbed it. Anyway, excellent. Welcome to all of you for this session. And before we go any further, I have to talk to you about the fire exits. Don't laugh. The premises has a voice-guided evacuation alarm. Therefore, leave the premises immediately if you're prompted to do so. The premises has 3 emergency exits. Look around. The closest one might be right behind you. In case of an emergency, we need a defibrillator. It's located in the lobby. Now that we've got the formalities out of the way, could you all put your hands together to welcome my panel on stage? So we have a power-packed panel today. I will introduce the panelists as they come up. But before we do that, I just want to say a few words. If my slides will come up now. Yes, it does. Just to set the framework as to what we're going to be discussing today when it comes to destination stakeholder management. Now, in the criteria that GSTC has developed, there is a lot of emphasis on stakeholder engagement and stakeholder management. You can see here the list of the different criteria that talks about stakeholders constantly, because that's at the heart of the kind of work that we need to do when it comes to destinations. Now, what happens when stakeholder consultation doesn't happen in a manner in which it needs to happen? There is usually problems. I've listed out some of the problems here: overcrowding in destinations, local way of life disrupted. Now, when all this happens, tourism is affected, quite obviously. When you have beautiful, pristine beaches, thanks to a tourism event, the beach gets destroyed. How do the locals react to something like this, right? Because they've not been consulted the way they needed to be consulted, and because of which a tourism destination gets destroyed. Now, there are other examples also from around the world. I want to talk about one of them again. I want to talk about Venice. There's this book written by Salvatore Settis, who is a cultural anthropologist, who said that if climate change does not drown Venice, tourism will. What did he mean by that? There is a lot of overcrowding. There is a climate change issues, of course. We're not denying that. That is a big issue when it comes to most parts of the world. But the fact remains that there are other aspects of tourism that is affecting Venice, which is the number of boats that go in and out of Venice, thanks to the 25 million passengers and tourists who crowd Venice on an annual basis. As a result of which, the little waves from these boats are hitting against the foundation, and the foundations are sort of beginning to crumble. And this is what he meant by saying that if climate change doesn't drown Venice, tourism will. And there are other instances where beaches have been closed off for the locals because a cruise ship was coming, right? This happened in Vanuatu, and of course they corrected it. And in places, this is from Korea, where there was a village in which the locals were not consulted, because of which there was overcrowding of tourists and tourism guides and tourism groups, and everybody protested. And much later after that, the government came in and imposed legislation and things shifted. But we don't want these things to happen. We don't want a picture like this to go on to social media, right? Which is the reason why we want to ensure that stakeholder management and stakeholder consultation happens very well. So in today's session, we're going to be discussing all these issues here that you see on the screen. And I'm going to first call upon Susanna to present to us. She's successfully leading an ESG strategy at the Peninsula Papagoya a luxury destination located in the North Pacific of Costa Rica. She has a background in law and business, a master's in sustainability, and extensive experience in the third sector, finance and philanthropy. Susanna, the stage is all yours.
Thank you, Ram. Well, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Susana Vicente, and I'm the Director of Sustainability at Peninsula Papagayo, which is a beautiful destination, as Ram said, located on the northern Pacific coast of Costa Rica. First of all, thank you, the GSTC, for organizing this inspiring event, as always, and for inviting me to be a speaker today. It's an honor to share stage with this panelist. So before I have another one. So before we dive into stakeholder engagement, let me introduce you to our destination. Peninsula Papagayo spans 1,400 acres of land, featuring a Four Seasons hotel, an Andas hotel, a Ritz-Carlton hotel currently under construction, a golf course, a marina, and a private residential community. So with that diverse landscape, imagine the variety of stakeholders we have to deal with on a daily basis. So, starting to talk about stakeholder engagement, I assume everybody will agree that stakeholder engagement is essential for the successful implementation of any kind of a strategy or initiative, and also for sustainability strategies. It offers plenty of benefits, such as identifying priorities and setting goals, enhancing innovation and creativity, building accountability, and also increasing reputation. For us, there are 4 key steps when approaching stakeholder engagement. First of all, identifying all your stakeholders. Then we have to prioritize them. There are several methodologies available. You can check many of them online. The third pillar will be communication plan. We have to create a tailor-made communication plan for each of the stakeholders based on the first and the second step. And finally, we will create our own materiality assessment, which will help us define which are the priorities for the organization, which have to align with the priorities of our stakeholders. That's why it is important to engage in them in this process. And here is just an example of our materiality. We created the first materiality assessment in 2018, and we have just updated that some months ago. We have 13 material topics. The most important for our stakeholders is water and resource management, and also biodiversity conservation, but we have 11 more, which of course are part of the core of our strategy. So apart from that, we have also created our own innovative matrix, which help us define what is the best approach, depending on our level of influence, and also if we are able to get a benefit just for our company, or also to benefit other stakeholders. So I'm going to explain the 4 different approaches. First of all, we have the imperative approach that happens whenever we have a high level of influence, but we just benefit our company. For example, when we release a new policy which is mandatory for our vendors. So they have to comply with the policy. They might get an indirect benefit out of that, but the main goal is to benefit the company. The second is the shared practices approach. So we find ourselves sometimes in situations where we have low influence, for example, with competitors which are like really far away from us, but we still want to get a benefit. So what we have been doing is getting in touch with leaders in sustainability, such as Six Senses, Soneva, Awasi in the Patagonia, and we have been visiting them and learning from them. So that's how we call it shared practices. Of course, indirectly, they can also learn from us, but the main goal is for us to get inspiration of what others are doing out there. The third approach is the mutual cooperative benefit. So we find also ourselves in situations where we have a high influence, but we can leverage that to get benefit for several stakeholders. So last year, I was also speaking and I was talking about our coral restoration project, which is the largest coral restoration project in Costa Rica. This year, in order to secure further sustainability of the project, we have decided to outsource our monthly coral cleaning volunteering program. Up to March, I think, we have been organizing it ourselves and also funding it ourselves. But now we have 4 different diving schools of the local community which are offering it to tourists at a fixed price. So now we have tourists taking care of our corals, then the income goes directly to the local community. And of course, they are super engaged in taking care of this delicate ecosystem. And apart from us, our organization is going to save up to $30,000 a year, which is great for the project because it reduces the dependency on our organization for the future. And the 4th approach is the solutions provider approach, which to me is the most useful when we want our stakeholders to buy in. Those are situations when we have a really low influence, so we cannot adopt like an imperative attitude, but we still want an initiative to be successfully implemented. So what we do is providing a solution so everybody is happy and buys in our initiative. And let me illustrate that with a real case called From Plastic to Profit. So in 2022, we decided to eliminate all single-use plastics in the guest experience, thinking that was an easy goal to accomplish. We made a huge effort to eliminate plastic straws, single-use bathroom amenities, cups, bottles, cutlery, like everything you can imagine. There were items I didn't know that existed. And we did accomplish that, but it was not, of course, an easy task. So the main challenge came with water bottles because there were no economically or sustainable alternatives in the country. So we found ourselves transitioning from a 25-cent plastic bottle to a $2 aluminum, single-use aluminum bottle. So that dramatically increased our budget. Of course, as you can imagine, what happened, it led to internal opposition, jeopardizing our long-term commitment to be single-use plastic in the guest experience. And what is furthermore, some stakeholders beyond our operational control remain disengaged. They didn't want to change from plastic because of the price. So we found some guests coming into our beach club with plastic bottles, contravening our single-use free plastic policy. So we had a dilemma. What do we do now? We have stakeholders which do not care what we are doing. We have like 8 times increase in budget, so we have to make a decision. So facing this dilemma, there were 3 alternatives. Going back to plastic, which was really not a viable choice because it will decrease and damage our reputation and credibility. The second option will be enforcing the plastic policy through contractual changes and regulations, but we thought that was not the best way to engage with stakeholders because they will have like even a high resistance to that policy. And the third option was, well, let's look for an alternative which is practical and beneficial for everybody. And that's what we did. So we presented a solution which was, well, let's set up our own water bottling plan and a specialized facility to bottle our own water, basically non-carbonated and carbonated water in 2 different formats, glass and 3-ton, which is a reusable plastic. It can be used up to 500 times, and we will be using that in the beach and pool areas where we cannot be using glass. So this is promising several advantages apart from the 2 formats and the 2 types of water. We will reduce our reliance on branded water imports. We will reduce our carbon footprint. We will be a model for the region because this is going to be powered only by green energy. We will do the delivery in an electric van, and we will only use green certified products. And of course, apart from that, we will have economic savings. So the project is going to pay itself in 3 years, and after that, we will save up to $200,000 a year, which is a lot of money for us. So that said, and with this story, I want to wrap up, and I want to tell you that we did have a lot of challenges, like these stakeholders not engaged, stakeholders like really facing our policies. But the main 2 takeaways I want you to take from my speech today are, first of all, stakeholder engagement is unavoidable. We need to engage with the stakeholders in order to have a successful implementation of any kind of strategy, even if we don't want to or we don't feel to. I mean, that's necessary. And the second is we need to foster genuine dialogue and cooperation with the stakeholders in order to know what their expectations, concerns, and priorities are, in order to provide a solution which is practical but also beneficial for the greater good of everybody. So that's going to ensure the success of the implementation. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Susanna. We'll take questions later, so I'm straight away going to invite my next speaker. So it's Cheh, the Assistant Chief Executive of Corporate and Sustainability for Sentosa Development Corporation, one of the shapers of the Sentosa's strategic roadmap. With the guiding philosophy that there is no competition in sustainability and a believer that tourism can be a force for good, he has led the formation of the Sentosa Carbon Neutral Network, one of the first carbon neutral networks focused on business alliances in Singapore. Cheh, stage is yours.
Thanks, Ram. So happy to be here in Stockholm. I come from a place similar to Susanna, 1 degree above the equator. So this is a welcome change in weather. We experience 12 hours of daylight and 12 hours of nighttime, 365 days of the year. We describe our weather there as hot, humid, and rainy. Pick your choice. And we welcome you to come to visit Singapore when GSTC convenes there in November. But here I just want to take a poll of this very well-traveled group, I'm sure. How many of you have been to Singapore? Okay, very well done, well done. A good variety of you. So it needs no further introduction. But for those of you who have been there, you will notice that each time you go to Singapore, it always feels a little bit different. And that's because we are a relatively young country. And over our past 60 plus years of development, we only got our independence in 1965. We've been rapidly developing. And that comes sometimes at a cost. Now for us, being land scarce and always being small, a lot of our sustainability drive comes with a unique feature of its own. So let me give a bit of an introduction of Sentosa. So Sentosa is one of the smaller, Singapore, as is in Sweden, we are an archipelago of islands. And Sentosa is one of the secondary islands connected to the main Singapore island by a causeway, just as Djurgården is. Yeah, we are only about 80% bigger than Djurgården, so quite a small island. But as you can tell, we have to pack a lot of it into the island. We have award-winning golf courses, marinas, integrated resorts, the first Universal Studios in Southeast Asia, and one of the larger aquariums here. And we welcome 19 million visitors pre-COVID. So it's a lot to pack. And because we are land scarce, we always focus on quality tourism. But as we move into a new century, we begin to realize that quality tourism cannot be quality tourism if it's not sustainable. And so for this reason, we embarked on a plan to lay out a sustainability roadmap in 2021. In the midst of COVID, we set ourselves 2 major ambitions. The first one was to be carbon neutral by 2030. And the second one is that we really want to benchmark ourselves and learn from the best, like some of you sitting in the crowd, and benchmark against the apex practices in sustainable tourism. We were fortunate in 2022, Sentosa, together with Resorts World Singapore, Resorts World Sentosa, which is the operator of the integrated resorts, we were certified according to the GSTC Destination Criteria, making us the first destination in Asia to be certified. And then Singapore followed, making us the first country in Asia to be certified in 2023. But what does the organization that I belong to do? Sentosa Development Corp, we are essentially the promoter, operator, and developer of this piece of land. We are uniquely shaped because no other precinct in Singapore is shaped like that. We follow our businesses from cradle to grave. and we have a landowner as well as a operator relationship with them. And because of that, we find that we are uniquely structured to do some things differently. So one of the things that we feel strongly about is that as a tourism operator, we feel that tourism can be a force for good. And so therefore, we feel that by having a focus in sustainability, we are able to introduce some practices into how businesses operate. And I'll give some examples later on. We know that we have to take a responsibility of reducing our footprint, both in carbon as well as in waste. And finally, in the way we develop the island, we need to be sensitive to nature and ecology, and also because we realize the best time to capture carbon savings is when you design the development, right? So with this in mind, we set up the Sentosa Carbon Neutral Network. What is the Sentosa Carbon Neutral Network? It is an alliance of businesses that operates on the island. And in 2021, when we formed the Sentosa Carbon Neutral Network, to be honest, we weren't quite sure whether it would take off. Remember, this was a time when the world was stricken by COVID, and tourism business at a point in time was a sink or swim industry, right? At that point in time, we went out there and we asked them, will you join this carbon neutral network? And by joining, it means that you are committed to carbon neutrality by 2030. It means investment on your part. It means commitment to change. And we were sometimes wondering to ourselves, is that the best time to make this challenge? And to our surprise, 17 of the businesses responded. But these 17 businesses were some of the larger companies, and collectively they accounted for more than 90% of the carbon footprint of the island, which was significant. 3 years down the road, the carbon neutral network has increased by 80%. Now they number 30, right? And we cover 95% of the island carbon footprint. And as you can tell, some of the newer players that have come on board are the smaller, medium enterprises. And we are encouraged by that because it means sustainability is for everyone, not only those with the means, but also the ones with the will to do it, right? But creating this alliance means that we can solve problems in a different way, problems that probably we didn't think were our own, but now we could own it because we own it together as an alliance. We created common language and goals. We have a consistent carbon methodology, which we collect on a yearly basis. So we track our carbon progression as well as our waste progression. We engage leadership at all levels, from business owners to their operation management, to even the frontliners, so that we share the same ethos. And of course, it's a community of best practice. We say in sustainability, there's no competitors. We all work together. So maybe I can give some examples of what we do. The first one was solarization. In Singapore, we don't have a lot of means to renewable energy. Even the wind there is not strong enough. So we really have to capture all the energy that we can through rooftop solar. And rooftop solar requires 7 to 8 years for payback. By amalgamating our resources together, we were able to unlock, through economies of scale, 46 sites for solarization. Originally, we aimed 3 megawatt peak. We were able to achieve 5.2 megawatt peak, and allowing rooftop sizes that were so small, previously thought to be unlockable, and we unlocked them, and we were able to far exceed our solarization capability. Next, Singapore actually imports a vast majority of our food. 90% of our food is imported, which contributes both to carbon as well as it poses a food security threat, especially with uncertainty around the world. And we realized that the tourism businesses with a lot of our fine dining restaurants can be a force for good. And we rallied together and supported a farm-to-table strategy, which only 1% of land in Singapore is dedicated to agriculture. But we wanted to show that through the businesses, through our fine dining chefs, that we can promote local produce as a platform. When the farm-to-table mark was rolled out, more than 50% of the inaugural recipients were Sentosa F&B enterprises. And today, even at the premium tier, we occupy more than 60%. And of course, Sentosa F&B business is a disproportionately small group of F&B businesses in Singapore. And finally, we recognize that as we look at the different aspects of tourism, our ecology and our environment are to be valued, even if they are not developed. During COVID, we brought many tours onto our island to explore previously undeveloped areas but nature areas. We did biodiversity studies. We discovered we have 474 flora and fauna species, of which 20% of it are actually conservation needed. And we begin to create tours to bring attention to some of these nature areas. For example, we have one of four species of mangroves, of which it is critically endangered. We have one of the remaining native species of swiftlets, right, which has its nest on the island. And we have hawksbill turtles, which are critically endangered, coming to our shores on a nearly yearly basis, right? And these are all efforts that we're able to conserve because of our island efforts, right? So with this, I hope I give you a bit of a flavor of where we are, and I think it's a journey. We're still not there yet. We'll continue to grow. Yeah.
Thank you. It's a journey, and what a journey it's been. Fantastic. Moving on, I'm going to invite Camilla. Everybody knows who Camilla is, right? Camilla is the pioneer of sustainable tourism in Sweden since 2009. She's chaired the Swedish Network for Sustainable Tourism and was a Sustainable Leader of the Year. Now we know where she is, in Lloyd Garden, and which has earned the Green Destinations Platinum Award. Camilla?
Thank you, thank you.
Stage
I
is
hope I
yours
had the
again.
right thingamajig here. We'll see. Thank you so much, Cheh and Susanna. I love your matrix, and I do recognize about advocacy and common language and goals, and I'll get back to you to that in a second. First of all, I want to go back in time. After we had done our first sustainability inventory here years ago, asking all our attractions at Royal Djurgården to report their numbers, we gathered all to present the facts we had found, and I was ready. I was gonna, present all those numbers. But just before we started, members of our dedicated sustainability team came up to me and said, "We have a surprise for you, and we want to start the meeting." And I don't know how you are, but it's like I had a plan here. We start on time in Sweden, right? But hey, I had to have a little faith. So the day before, the team had felt that something was missing. So they had written a story about Royal Djurgården in due time. In the future, what would it taste like? What would it smell like? What would it feel like to come here? And it was a great story. So I get goosebumps just thinking about it. And when they had done that, they looked at me, smiled, and said, "Now you can present the numbers." And I really learned something that day. You have to know your why. And you have to own it in order to get people engaged. It's really simple, but it's true. At Royal Djurgården, we have welcomed guests for 400 years. Today it's up to us, tomorrow it's up to somebody else. But today it's up to us to make sure that we can welcome guests for yet another 500 years. That's 400 years. That's our why. It's in our identity. It's who we are. And we should never lose focus on that. We're talking about stakeholder engagement today, and I will focus a little bit on what has made a difference in our work to create a generous cooperation between the 62-member attraction of the Royal Djurgården Society, putting competition aside for the good of the destination, for the good of our neighbors, your neighbor, and of course, for the good of all. Our challenge is to care for the cultural heritage as we develop and meet the challenges of the future. But we also have to address this, and some of us met in Tallinn and talked about this. As a DMO, we have, do you recognize this? As a DMO, you have limited resources. Us as a membership organization, maybe even less. But the expectations, the wants on us are unlimited. How do we overcome that to become a unifying force? And again, these are questions that we get. What's in it for me? And our answer is always nothing. There's nothing in it for you unless you start putting something in. And if you start put something in and contribute, then there is so much in there for you. Our common knowledge, inspiration, and the power that comes in being many. So our mission has been to even the scales. We know that we will not get more resources. The only way to even the scales is through engagements by the stakeholders, our members. But remember, the stakeholders also have limited resources. We know that. So it goes both ways. We have to work in a way that proves that cooperation is efficient and creates resources for all. Susanna, you were talking about your matrix there, the influence you have and what you get out of it. It's important that it's beneficial for your own organization, but also benefits all. So that's why focusing together on our wants is really important. So remember, Royal Djurgården has no power. No DMO does really, right? We cannot tell the attractions of the destination what to do, nor do we want to. I don't want to. They're experts on their own businesses. So what we can offer is to focus on the issues that we solve better together than separately, to create a platform of shared knowledge and be leaders in developing our destination in a sustainable way. Okay, but how? Well, our board has been really important for us, paving the way. First, letting sustainability be the base for everything that we do. It is the strategic tool that we use. Second, by agreeing to focus on destination development instead of, for example, marketing. If we do that right, we're convinced the visitors will come. Finally, our 10 board members contribute by being loyal to the decisions being made. They have to make sure that they put in the resources in their own organization to reach our common goals and to let also their coolest heads of sustainability put in time and effort for the good of all, recognizing that it benefits them as well. So with that as a base, we have created the dedicated sustainability group, which is one of our 6 working groups. With these people from the attractions that are really experts on sustainability. And when you gather sustainability knowledge of the destination in one room, I can promise you there's a force to count on. All come with different priorities and areas of expertise. That's the strength. This is where knowledge is shared, strategies and goals are formed. In this work, our why and our common identity as part of Royal Djurgården and the framework set by the GSTC keep us on the right track. Visions are important, but so are facts and goals. Every second year, we ask our attractions to share facts in a sustainability inventory. The dedicated sustainability group then analyzes structures, and together we have identified 4 focus areas where our inventories show we have the most impacts. With the 4 focus areas, we have set long and short-term goals all tied to the SDGs. You can find them, pick them out outside in the tourist office there. Now we're back to numbers and goals where I started. We have our why, but here's the plan how to get there with the focus areas at hand and the goals. The next step was to gather all the attractions and work the goal through. Important for us has been that the members of the dedicated sustainability team has been leading these workshops. No one from the outside has come in and done that. They have been leading the workshops and the discussions. Neighbors helping neighbors. It makes it real. If they can do it, then we can as well. So we have all signed off on the goals, which is important because most of the work has to be done by the attractions themselves. We have even collectively changed our statutes, so all are obligated to strive to achieve the goals. Now we have yearly follow-up meetings, and besides the dedicated sustainability groups, our members share their examples on how they have incorporated the common goals into their own. I'll give one quick example on how we work when it comes to common challenges, using facts and stakeholder engagements as tools forward. We had identified the common need for public transport. I'm guessing many of you recognize that. On top of an ongoing dialogue with the region responsible for public transport, we sat down with the stakeholders. They decided to invest money to start our own public transport the pre-pandemic summer of 2019 to prove our point. With facts in hand, proving this line was needed, we returned to the region, and last summer, this very ferry line was introduced. So that's one example on how we worked. I'll give you another one. This is Bella Lian from our amusement park Gröna Lund, sharing knowledge with all our restaurants on how to fight single-use plastic. After realizing none of the restaurants can solve this separately, we have just started a project we mentioned earlier, aiming to introduce a joint solution for a reusable system for takeaway containers for the entire area. So this is part of our identity, what we do, how we meet our guests, how we choose the exhibits that we have. And just to conclude, I've talked a lot about the dedicated sustainability team as they are champions of the destination, but really we strive to make all champions of the destinations in their own way. And that has been our path to getting stakeholder engagement. Thank you.
How often would you hear a DMO say that, right? If a stakeholder asks, what's in it for me? Nothing. You know, which takes a lot of wisdom to say that. I always say in the sustainability philosophy, it has to start with, you have to give before you can receive, right? Once you follow that as the philosophy behind sustainability, it sort of ties in with what you did to say that nothing. What are you going to give first, right? Excellent. Thank you for that. Great. Annika is the last speaker. Annika did a sustainable tourism course in the University of Edinburgh, and she has a special focus on tourism management. She's been working in the industry for over 30 years, and in the last 15 years has been working with the Västerbotten. Have I got that right?
Yes.
Yeah, the West Bay, sustainable tourism management as a special focus. Annika?
Thank you. Hi, everybody. I am here to try to give a regional perspective as I represent the regional tourism department. This is a story about collaboration and partnership in the stakeholders in Västerbotten and how we started this. We started this journey in 2015, and we decided to use the GSTC criteria, which has been a blessing, actually. Västerbotten is a very small county in the north of Sweden. It's a large area, but it's scarcely populated. And many of the stakeholders that are in Västerbotten, we talked a lot about sustainability in 2014, but we had no idea on how to do it, the actual doing it. So we decided that we had to find some sort of tool or something that would help us do sustainability work in a strategic and structured manner. That's where the criteria came into place, and giving us the structure that we needed. In the first years, we used the destination criteria, and we started on by the destination management companies. Doing the analysis, we did reports, we did all sorts of activities and implementation of the strategic points in the assessments, and then we moved on to addressing tourism companies. But I think that one of the most important things is that this has developed very slowly over time, and we've let it take some time as well. Today we have over 100 tourism companies parting in this. We have 10 of the 15 municipalities as partners in the Västerbotten Experience Method, and we also have all the DMOs. And I think that one of the keys to a successful sustainability management program, at least in Västerbotten, has been to have the collaboration with the destination management companies. If they had not been active and working with such great engagement in this method and developing this method together with us, in the sort of co-creation that we've developed this method over the years, this would not have been the same story. Because like some of the people already had said here on the panel, we cannot tell other people what other people should do. We can only sort of give guidance and hopefully inspire someone to do something. And over the past few months, we have been working really, really hard in Västerbotten to reinvent this method. We've done a lot of work on assessing what's working well, what's not working so well, how can we do this better, and we've done this together with the destination management organizations and especially with the advisors that we've initially trained. And these advisors, they are now highly skilled advisors in sustainability. So we have a very working team that can, well, work together and also develop the method and learn together, which has been really, really, really a key point to where we are today. There are, of course, lots of challenges, and I'm quite happy to talk to you about them later on. But some of them has to do with being a regional tourism department with very scarce funds and also sort of not so clear ownership of a method that is now becoming the sort of way to work in Västerbotten. We've worked together to develop this method, and we've also taken the strategic decision that this method is the baseline for all the companies and all the activities that we do in Västerbotten. If you want to be part of a development activity, if you want to be part of marketing, if you want to be part of any sort of things that we do together, then the Västerbotten Experience Method is the first stop. You need to do the analysis, you need to get this report, and you need to do the steps that are implied by the GSTC criteria. And in this being a regional department, we could not have done this if the DMOs have not been part of this journey. There's obviously lots of benefits of working together. That's the only way to work forward. And together, we've decided that we also need to use this as going forward. We need to do something else. We can't just do the same thing, we need to take the next step. So one of the things that we're doing together is moving on to a more focused way of working. We want to digitalize the system that we're working in. We need to find better points to measure and report. We need to find easier ways of doing assessments and the analysis that we do with the companies, and we also need to do an easier working process with the Västerbotten Experience Method. And we also need to be more credible towards others, which we think we will be doing by working with Cheh, doing the certification. We're starting now with Umeå and with Skellefteå, because that's the starting point for us to do something. After that, then others will follow. We are quite sure of that. So we've started this process, and we're quite keen to see what's going to happen, you know, with a proper system, because the Västerbotten experience is a wonderful way to prepare in any sort of level that you're at in your sustainability work, but we need also the more focused way of addressing sustainability in terms of green claims and all this new regulations that are coming. So this is one sort of perspective, and it's been a really, really rewarding journey for us. And because we have such great collaborations in Västerbotten, it's also something that we do together. And I think, I don't know if it was you said it, Camilla, the ownership thing, and it creates so much engagement and pride when you're part of creating something. So this is one of the things that I'm mostly proud of, that we managed to inspire and make other people want to be on this journey with us, and also do this strategic choice that we're revising our regional strategy for tourism, and we're also setting out the pathway forward for sustainability. So, thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Annika. So start popping your questions in. You have the Slido. Yeah, you have the Slido app there. Remembering that you're going to get a free ticket for a training program. If you're lucky, I may be doing the training program. God, talking about ego. Anyway, so while the questions keep coming in, there's one question which I want to ask you folks. It's bad enough for one business to try and do its own business the way it is. You got many businesses to come together and collaborate and all that. All of you spoke about it. Camilla, I want to ask you specifically, in terms of competition, how do you manage competition? Because it's nice to say, let's all hold hands and sing Kumbaya together. But at the end of the day, there are businesses which are competing against each other. How do you manage that competitive framework?
There are a couple of things. I think the first question you always have to ask yourselves or your stakeholders is, so what are the issues that we solve better together than separately? And the things that people solve better together separately, they should do separately. I mean, that's but to really identify what we do better together. And when it comes to sustainability, everything is done better together. And so for us, it's been the cooperation that we have I also recognize the fact that every hour I take away from my hoteliers and my restaurants and everything like that, it's an hour where they can't fill the restaurants or their hotels. So you have to respect each other's time and make sure that you're prepared, that you're efficient, and that from one meeting to the other, you're pushing the questions forward or the issues that you have. So that has been really important. And another thing is you have to have fun. I mean, one of the goals that we have, I have 5 kind of key words on what should be. It should be, you have to know what you're doing. It has to be long term. It has to create value. It has to be generous and open. But you also have to be. It also has to be fun. The goal is that people would say, "Yay! I can go to a network meeting and share knowledge." Not every time people say that, but that's a part where you want to have it. Yeah.
Yeah, because I always wondered that, trying to get a cluster together. Annika, have you had any issues of competition that's not quite worked within your stakeholder group?
Actually, I would say no. We've managed quite well to sort of, because we're a region as well, we do it on a level that doesn't compete. I can imagine it's a different story in Djurgården, obviously, with the setup. But no, we haven't really experienced that.
So it is Kumbaya indeed, huh?
It is.
Wow.
Come to Västerbotten and experience it.
Come to Västerbotten and sing Kumbaya. Excellent. So one question which is sort of coming up, which I kind of expected really, is marginalized stakeholders, silent stakeholders, stakeholders without a voice. How is it that you folks have you all addressed that specifically? How have you got them sort of included in the overall process? Cheh, do you want to start? Give us your view. Has there been any experience that you all had in terms of mining through and picking out these silent stakeholders and the marginalized groups?
Yeah. I think, if I want to be honest, anybody who's embarking on a sustainability journey will bound to have some marginalized stakeholder groups, simply because you only have a set number of time to engage a set number of stakeholders. And you really have to consider, based on the data, which are the needle-moving groups that you need to engage first, right? It's a matter of prioritization. But of course, as we engage more, we learn more about the stakeholder groups, and we make an attempt to engage every single one of them. I remember one of the efforts that we tried to do was to look at the ecotourism potential in one of our more remote southern islands. And there we found that in the history of those islands, there used to be native groups there, right? And there used to be small fishing populations there, of which they have been displanted during the colonial times. And when we were thinking of redeveloping it, we felt that they were an important group to engage. And so we collected stories from them. And in our development of how the future of the island will be developed, we solicited their thoughts, make notes on their lifestyle, and we compiled it into a guide so that future travelers will come and they will remember their stories for life. And I think this is a powerful way where tourism can really be a force for good, where we help to connect people, not just with opportunities to explore and have a good time, but also learn about the true, deep cultural things that really matter. And I find that many times it's these authentic experiences that make engagement of these stakeholder groups truly meaningful. Yeah. And maybe I can also just add to your earlier question about competition.
Yep.
One of the things that we notice is that there tends to be a little bit of a sense of competition, because when you have close to 20 hotels operating on a very small site, there tends to be a little bit of a comparison. But one of the things that we also realize that while we set certain minimum threshold standards for sustainability, really the ambition is that we need to go further. And there we say that sustainability don't have to be cookie cutter, right? Each hotel should have their own brand of sustainability, and you should tend to exceed your own potential. So for example, we have a lot of heritage buildings on the island, and we tell them if heritage is who you are in your brand, then you should celebrate it, in your sustainability efforts, right? And I see that in Djurgården, for example, and I love it, right? And I think that's something that we should all aspire to, yeah.
Yeah, thank you. I'm going to go to the next question, which is, do you have any tips for influencing stakeholders that are resistant to change? I think it's a great question, because imagine trying to deal with a disparate group and to expect everybody, unlike your place, where everybody singing Kumbaya together, there's likely to be some resistance. So, Susanna, do you want to take that question?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Well, to me, and according to the matrix, I explain when somebody is resistant to change is because they don't see a benefit. So we need to prove there is a benefit, and if we cannot do that immediately, maybe we have to lead by the example. So for us, in our case of the water bottling plant, we will build a plant, we will have water for our hotels, and then for the private residences, which remain disengaged and they didn't want to change because changing from plastic to single-use aluminum was too expensive, we will also offer them buying our now new water from our water bottling plant at a lower price. So they're actually going to see the benefit, and they will also share, the running cost of the water bottling plant. So to me, the obvious response will be there has to be a benefit for them, because in any situation of life, sometimes when stakeholders do not see there is a benefit for them, they will just, reject change.
Yeah, okay, so that benefit identification, is a very clear need, obviously, 'cause at the end of the day, everybody's doing a business, which is fair enough. Sticking with you, there's another question which has come up about corals. When tourists are cleaning corals, how do you assure they don't damage the corals while cleaning? And I want to add to that, say, how much of your stakeholders locally do involve in the whole process of getting the corals cleaned and all that? How many of your stakeholders are truly involved in that whole process also? If you can address both.
Okay, so responding to the first question, we trained the local tour operators who run the activity right now. So we have the scientists from the University of Costa Rica, which is our partner in this project, training every single staff which is involved in the process to make sure that they know how to operate that. Apart from that, we always, in every boat who goes to clean coral, we send one of the staff of the Alliance to make sure the process is done correctly. And apart from that, a diver who wants to go and clean corals has to have at least 10 dives to make sure, they have enough stability not to damage the corals. So there's this kind of triple check before we send people into the water. And responding to your second question,
How much
yeah.
are your local stakeholders involved in this whole activity?
Well, we reach out to every local tour operator in the communities, like in the 2-3 mainly nearest communities. Some of them were reluctant because they didn't see a benefit, and now some of them are approaching. So we have 5 diving schools right now involved. Before we reach out to them, they knew about the project, but they didn't know what to do, so they will just send people there to snorkel. Now they can activate more experiences for their tourists, which is also beneficial for everybody. So I would say, like, a great majority of the local tour operators are involved. And of course, we keep being open because I think that's essential when it comes to stakeholder engagement, building trust. So we have also started a project to go to the local schools and show them and teach them about marine conservation, because we believe it is important also in the local community for the children in the surrounding areas to know the importance of the corals, the importance of the mangroves. We also have some nice mangroves in the area, and how to protect them and how to live on their daily life, so they make sure they protect the biodiversity we have.
Okay, thank you. So now I want to move towards the question which talks about the elephant in the room, greenwashing. I think that's something that everybody is concerned about, in a whole destination. What do we do about greenwashing? How much can you monitor it? How much can you cap it? But I guess if the whole island is certified, so Sentosa, it's not an issue. You can't do greenwashing because in the audit you'll get caught. But in places where every entity is not sustainability certified according to the GSTC norms as yet, how do you handle greenwashing? Annika, do you want to sort of take that and tell us?
Sure. That is actually a big issue. One of the things that we've done to sort of prevent that is trying to talk as much as possible about greenwashing so that people know what is it, because obviously we haven't always a clue what the thing is. But what we're trying to do as well is having everybody moving forward in the sort of roadmap of sustainability, because the more knowledge they have, the more likely it is that they'll not be greenwashing. So I think it's a knowledge thing, and also that the peer pressure of, oh no, you can't do that, and sort of helping each other rather than, pointing fingers, but having a common interest in not greenwashing. But I think it's got to do with knowledge. At least it is in our part.
So you almost kind of crowdsource the policing of it.
Yes.
Rather than have one central authority doing the policing.
Yes, and now we will have the earth check, so
So then,
we're getting there.
Okay, fair enough. I think there's another question for you as far as Sentosa is concerned. How do you manage the transportation to and from the island with sustainability in focus? Do you have special efforts that you did in this area?
Yeah, so transportation is something that we always looked at. Today, you have multiple ways to come into the island. You have a cable car, which is really electric. You have a monorail system, which is also electric. Previously, you have to take a ferry. Now you can actually walk across the bridge, which is the most carbon-free option. And of course, finally, you can take public transport in as well, which is great as well. But of course, we still allow cars to drive in, which is going to be something that needs to be resolved at a national level. Today, in our future planning of not just Sentosa, but the greater southern waterfront, we're taking in some of these considerations. In Singapore, we have a car light policy, which essentially limits the number of cars that will grow, which is why Singapore is notoriously known as one of the most expensive places to get a car. So that in itself is already a limiting factor. But that won't solve the issue. You really need the improvement of public transportation to be more feasible in order for people to still thrive in the modern society. And that's something that is continuously, progressively worked on. And in future, we are envisioning a Sentosa that would actually lessen the number of car park lots, which will be a tremendous achievement if we can get that done, because the expectation is still for us to grow. Yeah.
Yeah, the transport is really interesting, and as we are on an island as well, that is one of the big issues that we have, and we want to ban all cars here as well, but we also have a discussion with the city, of course. We need the bridge that we have is from 1897, and I mean we need an extra bridge. We need more infrastructure, and I think that's one of the challenges that we have that we really have to address together, and have this kind of lobby work to try to explain how important it is that we have good transport to our different destinations. And for us, we have this discussion. As I said, we even started a little bit of a public transport just for one summer. Had we done it twice, and the authorities probably would have said, good, you could continue, do it forever. So we said we'll only do it for one summer. But we also, just as to try, we closed our bridge off for cars to get the numbers, to get the facts, and then continue the conversation that we have with the region and the city as to what is the future smart traffic solution for this island. What we have today is not optional.
Okay, all right. Excellent, thank you so much. I mean, there are so many other fantastic questions here that we'd love to sort of address, but the clock says I'm already negative time here, and we are in Sweden, and I don't want to risk nothing. Yeah, so thank you very much to all you panelists for a wonderful session. Give them a big hand. We break for refreshments now.